Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and LEAP, helping students to succeed in all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning and Test Bright, helping students and teachers alike exceed their educational goals, based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the two of us today, we have over 65 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The fascinating topic we want to explore today is college admissions trends for 2026 and 2027. But first, let's meet our special guests, Allie Beaumont and Meg Joyce.
Allie Beaumont is the founder of Admissions Village, a family-focused, affordable one-on-one college guidance consultancy. She is deeply committed to making the college admissions process less stressful. Allie is also a founder and advisor to the College Tea, a website connecting high school students with college students and recent graduates so that firsthand information experiences can be shared. She is a member of IECA, and she has her certificate as an independent educational consultant from the University of California, Irvine. Meg Joyce is a graduate of Joyce University, where she studied finance and English and worked in the alumni office, spending hours talking to alums and learning about their time on campus and volunteering for many years as an alumni interviewer. Meg works with Allie at Admissions Village, helping students and their parents navigate every step of the college search and application process. A self-professed research and detail geek, her favorite part of the job is watching students grow in skills and confidence as they work their way through high school and eventually college applications. Meg is a professional member of IECA and NACAC, and she has her certificate as an independent educational consultant from the University of California, Irvine. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We are so happy to have you. In fact, this is far from the first time either of you have been on the show. Meg, you've been joined us once. Allie, this is your 7th time on the
Oh my God,
podcast.
is it really? Wow.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yes.
We would use up all of our episode time if we discussed your previous episodes. So instead, we're just going to look forward. Before we dive into this college enrollment trends episode, we'd love to have both of you share a bit about who you are and what you do together.
So we work at Admissions Village together. Meg works with me, and we have actually 5 others on our team. We work a little bit differently than other consulting firms that have multiple consultants in that we work as a group and as a committee together, much like admissions offices work as a committee. We don't assign students one student to one consultant. So we really like it. We have a lot of fun with each other. And I also think the kids really benefit from having multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
That's such a novel approach to consulting. How does that work? Like you described the way it works in an admissions office where individuals say, I can picture them around a table arguing for certain applicants, but you have a different situation. So do you try to simulate that experience of like what if you were the admissions panel, what would you do?
Not necessarily. What most of the conversations about college list building happen with me, although everyone sort of jumps in with kids when they're talking because lists evolve over multiple months, right? But in terms of the essay work and the application work, typically a student might work with one person. Sometimes they work with 2 or 3 of us. It depends on how it's going. But all 5 of us read everything. 5 of us who work on the undergrad side. We have 2 people who actually a career coach and a grad school consultant. But all 5 of us, and actually often Elizabeth, who does the grad school consulting, read all of the undergraduate stuff that goes out. And we all make comments. And we actually have a lot of team meetings where we discuss students' work without them and then get back to them. So they do get multiple perspectives.
That's amazing. Meg, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just that, students love it because I think there's like constant, it's not meeting with the same person all the time and getting just one perspective. And there's no confusion because the meetings are with one person. Allie might have the list meeting and then I'll take over, day to day application preparation, essay coaching, activities lists, who to ask for your teacher recs. But, at all times behind the scenes, the consultants are in constant communication with one another because, this is a hard business and it's really nice to have several voices in the room.
Yeah, I could really appreciate that, knowing there's like a whole team overseeing my application, right? That's like a wonderful concept. I don't know that in test prep, too many cooks in the kitchen, Mike. I don't know, maybe, but
There's something to be said for that.
yeah.
Let's dive into a topic that we are perennially fascinated by. I know, Ellie, that you and Meg and the team dig into college trends every year. And this year, you published 3 consecutive blogs. There was so much information. You couldn't just write one long article. You had to write 3 long articles to cover everything. I know that we could only hope to skim some of the trends that you pulled out. We're going to include links to the whole thing, but let's start from the top and get into what would the both of you say is the big theme for college admissions right now. And by right now, we're saying both like what has happened for the class of the high school graduating class of 2026 and maybe what's coming down the pike.
So we actually called the theme timing. So colleges are usually one step ahead of us, but this year many things caught up with them. So let's think of it, for example, the demographic cliff, which, by the way, the demographic cliff, for people who don't know, is that starting in 2008, fewer babies were being born every year. And I think the colleges started preparing for it in 2008, realizing that was coming down the pike. And they kind of prepared for it in 2 different ways. They went down 2 different pathways. The first were the highly selective colleges who were concerned about remaining desirable and attracting the top students. So to do that, they marketed themselves low income, first generation, small town and rural students, international students in different ethnic populations. And they backed that up with a lot of financial aid, need-based aid. So they basically moved to economic affirmative action. Princeton actually started that as early as 2002 when they started offering full demonstrated financial need for certain families. Now 70 or 80 colleges are doing that, right? But the other group of colleges, they also wanted to attract strong students, but they were also more concerned with just actually filling their seats now, getting worried about the fact that we have fewer kids coming to college, right? So how did they do that? In order to sort of stay more competitive, they started adding bigger and bigger merit aid awards to kids. They started giving them larger and larger merit aid awards. So today we've kind of gotten to a point where that's really spiraled, and the average college, is accepting for every dollar that they should be theoretically charging for tuition, they're only collecting 44 cents. So we've kind of really hit a difficult time where actually both pathways are getting to the same result, that colleges can no longer rely on tuition revenue.
So that's interesting. And of course, any of us who go through this process with our own children and see year after year some students paying 80,000 plus a year, we wonder how could you not make it with tuition? How can you not turn a profit on that much tuition? Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that, you're describing a certain percentage of tuition they're actually capturing because they are heavily discounting for some and hoping to charge full price for others. Is there a change in the number of full pay students that's tweaking current college economics?
So that's actually a good question that I don't know the exact answer to, but I will tell you MIT has come out with things like, actually, even if the kids were paying full price, it costs them like so much more to have a kid there than what
Mhm.
full price actually is. And I will tell you, at a school like Princeton, 70% of the students are receiving need-based aid.
Right,
So you only have
right.
30% of the kids actually paying full price. And so that gets really complicated. So basically what's happening is we have a ton of colleges at this point. 40% of private colleges and 20% of public colleges are running deficits.
Right.
And places you don't expect, very highly selective
And they're
schools.
doing that though primarily to chase students. Is that what you're suggesting? Like the idea of is we need to give more of a discount, so we have to do that to lure a student. Is that the idea you're suggesting?
So no, I think they were doing it to build the classes that they want. So yes, to lure students, but I think what really happened is they kind of, the schools that are discounting and giving out tuition, merit aid awards, those schools have dug themselves into a huge hole because they're not collecting tuition. The
Mhm.
other schools were trying to build a more diversified class and get the students that they want, because
Mhm.
obviously schools like the Ivy League could fill their classes a million times over, but they were trying to get the right students that they wanted, the students that they wanted that would build this incredibly diverse class. But both of them have really dug themselves into a hole to the point now where they don't get tuition revenue, which would be fine, except for the fact that the other two ways that they typically make money or that they survive are state appropriations and federal funding, and both of those got massively hit in the last year.
Yeah.
Both of those got cut.
Well, but then the takeaway for me as a parent is thinking that means that I don't necessarily know what I'm going to pay because colleges are throwing money and I might not know what from the sticker price to the final price, what that looks like then.
That's correct. The only instance that, the instance that pops in my head where, no, actually, you do know what you're going to pay is if you don't if you know you're not going to qualify for need-based financial aid, and it's a school that does not offer merit scholarships, then you
Mhm.
know you will be paying full sticker price.
Right.
Outside of that, that's correct.
I think that just when kids build their lists, right? That is one thing that's tricky for a family is like, oh, how much money are we going to get? Is it worth being on the list or not? That's why I think this is what complicates it when you don't really know what the real price is. It's hard to know whether the school should stay on your list or not.
We see patterns, year to year in schools, but there's a lot of truth to what you're saying.
You're jumping ahead, Amy, to basically what we're telling students to do. Students have to follow one of two pathways. If they want to get into a more selective institution in their full pay, then they can apply early decision to give themselves the best shot of doing that. And if money is a factor, they really need to wait it out and get all of their offers and compare,
Yeah.
because that's the only way to know what exactly they're going to get.
Yeah. And that's obviously having Mike and I having had kids go through this in the last few years, right? You do think about that as like building the list is so critical. And obviously this is the time of year that students are doing that. And so I love that you're suggesting this is where the hard conversation has to happen if whether the finances are going to, how significantly they're going to matter. And that is how you build that list or think about those pathways.
And it's unfair for most families to have to decide between these choices, considering that what we realize is that more and more selective schools are drawing more and more of their freshman classes from early decision, early action. And families in a time of economic uncertainty, colleges are not the only class
sure, right?
in our society confronting the gap between what they're bringing in and what's going out. So families, I had this conversation just the other day on my street. People are like flagging me down, asking me, well, this is now we're doing college admissions. And if you want to go to a school where early decision is the safer path, how likely are you to actually get aid? Because I think that's the question. And maybe you don't know this, but I'm wondering, based on the schools that say that they're meeting need, and I know that what need shows up on paper is different from the need that shows up in the checkbook, but kind of family feel at least slightly comfortable that if they go ED, they will get a good offer from a school?
So that's a great question and very, very hard to answer, because
Yes.
every college calculates their need-based aid in a very different way. For example, some might count the value of your house, some might count it 2 or 3 times, right? Some might
Hmm.
not count it at all. And so when you start getting into playing that game with CSS profile schools, which use their own institutional methodology to determine how much they think you actually need, then it becomes very complicated. The only thing I can say is if you are trying to figure out money, there are a group of schools that are incredibly generous with merit aid in their early decision rounds, sometimes even more so. A school like Grinnell gives you a bonus of 20,000. They guarantee $20,000 in merit aid if you apply ED. WPI does something similar. So you do have schools that do that. But I always tell families if money is really a big factor, then you should be waiting this out and comparing offers. And also, Mike, because this year we've been seeing this for a while, and I expect to see a lot more of it. We had schools coming back offering kids more money before they made any decision, trying to get them. We had schools coming back and offering more money after they said they weren't coming. Syracuse last year went
Right.
crazy with kids. Here, $50,000 off a year. Wait, you're not coming? Here, 60 off a year. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like nuts, you know?
I heard about that. I'm close to Syracuse
Yeah.
geographically. And right, I mean, it's just there's a lot of desperation, and the families that can afford to wait and let the school sweat a little bit. Amy, we've spoken in the past about power dynamics.
Sure. Yeah.
When the applicant has the power, that's when the sweeteners show up.
Mhm.
Well, and Mike, in all fairness, I feel for the colleges right now.
Mhm.
They're feeling just as much sort of confusion and stress over who are we going to get as the kids are of like, where are we going to go? And I think that's something that people don't really understand or realize. And they're feeling it particularly now because of financial reasons.
I totally get that. And I think that colleges are fortunate to have allies like the two of you. I have a more cynical observation about rampant administrative bloat, putting so much more money into enrollment management and taking that money out of faculty. Like a lot has happened, but I think many colleges have painted themselves into an unpalatable corner.
I can't disagree. We've seen a lot of things happening right now. I mean, you know, Meg and I are often out there seeing colleges, and we visited one particular college. First of all, we talked to our students who are at all these schools, and one of them at a very well-known, very popular state institution, talking about how he's had 6 advisors in 3 years, right?
Mm.
Right.
All of them talking about the fact that they are getting taught by grad students and not typically professors, that they're in these massive classes. And by the way, some of these at very highly selective privates that you would not expect that from,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
and they're talking about other kinds of things that you wouldn't expect, like the dining hall is not staying open as late on Saturday. It doesn't have as many food choices. We went to one school, Meg, like maybe you want to tell them about the landscaping, you know?
There was one school, and I kept saying to Allie, if we were anywhere else, I'd be thinking this college is in trouble.
Oh.
Because everywhere we turned, the college was overrun with weeds, just everywhere. It wasn't one pat, and every lawn was in need of mowing. There were weeds everywhere. The walkways throughout 100% of the campus were honestly dangerous. They were in such need of repair. And on top of that, it was Accepted Students Day. We were there at probably 9 a.m. In an hour, they're about to be flooded
Like this
with
should be when they
families.
look
This
the
should be when
most
it's
ready. Right. The
sparkling.
best face. Interesting.
And no, and a student that we were touring with had prepared us and said that I wish they would pay a little more attention to the grounds.
Wow.
And that was an 18-year-old boy talking, wishing they, think about how, grown-ups feel about the
And
grounds.
we didn't even get into things that really change a kid's experience. Like they don't have, they used to have a adult or an adult family living in every dorm, and now there's like one for every 4 dorms.
Mm.
So that's not the same kind of person there for your kid.
You're talking about like a resident hall director, some
Yes.
adult
Yeah.
in the building.
Yes.
And not every dorm has an adult in the building now.
And these are highly selective schools that are really
Well, what we
changing
see now,
fundamentally like the student experience. Forget the fact that we see a ton of majors disappearing and
yeah,
and
right.
academic changes, right? Like we're talking about their fundamental experiences. And by the way, all of the schools we're talking about are those schools that fit into the acceptance rates under 10%. You know, like these aren't schools that we're talking about that should be financially in trouble.
Right. Okay, let's move a little bit because listen, we're critical because we're concerned, right? We love colleges. We love higher education. We love the path for the students that we work with, and we want them to have the best experience when they arrive at their school. Let's talk more about the trends that students are seeing when we get into the audit of college campuses and how colleges should fix everything. We'll cover all this in detail. Let's go back to trends that you're seeing that are impacting your students.
Okay, so well, one of the things that we're seeing, I think, just to step back, is just like families are feeling, we don't know what things are going to cost, colleges have the exact same problem right now. And if, except that in general, things are costing them more. So, they've just got a whole lot of new expenses, and that's what's driving this. There's been significant, that just starting this year, significant reductions to the student loan and Parent Plus loan systems. That affects grad and undergraduate students, and colleges feel a lot of pressure to pick up the slack to make things, so that students can in fact afford to go to their college. There's fewer international students going to colleges now because of visa issues. There's these buildings that need to be taken care of and campuses that need to be taken care of. Athletics are costing a lot at many D1 colleges because of changes to how athletes are paid and scholarships. And then a really big one for some colleges are, not only settlements that some of these colleges have made with the federal government over DEI and anti-discrimination claims, but also endowment taxes. And that has been driving something something pretty interesting. There's changes now so that colleges in 2023, 56 colleges paid about $400 million in total to the government for endowment taxes on their income, and that's changing. So it's going from a 0.4% rate to a tiered rate on endowment income that's as high as 8%, and it's changing who has to pay the tax. So private colleges and universities with assets of more than $500,000 per student and more than 3,000 tuition paying students, used to be just 500 students, are now subject to the tax. Harvard and Yale have about $300 million coming at them in an endowment tax bill this year. And, we're seeing that we're starting to see signs that some of the most selective colleges are trying to beat that tax or will be doing things to beat that tax. So they're looking for more full pay students. They're also maybe trying to get more non-tuition paying students to get them below that 3,000 number.
What do you mean by non-tuition paying students?
Princeton's doing that. Princeton figured out that if they offered tuition thresholds of $250,000 for free tuition versus what they had before previously, that would take them to having less than 3,000 tuition paying students, which would get them out of their $180 million endowment tax bill. So instead, they are now paying an extra $44 million in financial aid to beat the $180 million
It's like a numbers, yeah,
endowment
it's a
tax.
numbers game.
So that's interesting. So this actually benefits students because it's raising the threshold for full pay need.
It's what we call a win-win. UChicago just announced that they're going to be taking approximately 20% more students, and they're doing it because they've been running a deficit and they want more full pay students. We think it might also have to do with the endowment tax in either that they're raising their number of students so that they're getting their amount of endowment tax per student to be a lower number, because I think they're too big to get the under a certain number.
Wow, this is the first that I've heard of this endowment tax. So that is interesting, meaning
Yeah, this is really
that,
fascinating.
that we're gonna start seeing that probably in the next couple of years with what they do with admissions, because they're managing these numbers and figuring out how to make the math work, right?
Well,
From a tuition perspective.
to me, it's new in that this is the latest way that what colleges need financially is affecting who they're going to accept, but that's not a new concept. Right? It's always been about what colleges need for their business and way less about individual students.
Sure, but the idea is that we might see the trends happening because in this case, from a financial perspective, what it sounds like is there are going to be some students in these next few years at some institutions where they might reap the financial benefit because of this policy, essentially.
100%, but I also think we're going to see it affecting admissions. Like, I'm not sure if a place like Cornell right now, Cornell is actually exempt right now from the endowment tax because of the fact that they have quite a large student body, but they also have a large student body that is 20 some odd percent international students, and they don't count in that counting of endowment per student. So are we going to see a place like Cornell all of a sudden have fewer international students because they're getting close to having to pay the threshold to have to pay endowment tax? Like this is where enrollment actually affects what might happen in admissions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, essentially they're trying to increase the denominator, which is the number of domestics full-time students, in order to get them into, the preferred tier of taxation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this, keep in mind, is still only for those very wealthy schools at the top of the food chain, so to
Sure.
speak.
Right.
You have to
And
have a massive endowment, which in the past would have shielded you from a lot of adversity, but now it's become a little bit of an
it can
anchor
be a
around their
source
neck.
of problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could put in a plug, it's another reason, Allie and I are huge fans of smaller colleges.
Yeah.
So, especially if you're a student who's looking at some pretty selective colleges, the small colleges are not only the endowment tax is not their problem, but also many of the other things that I mentioned are not their problem either. So, or at least not to the extent that some of their peers are dealing with them. So this might be our plug if you're looking for a nice, stable, what environment for the next 4 years from an education perspective. Think about a small college.
Yeah, I was going to say that's really the 26 sort of most selective small liberal arts colleges
Yes,
that we're
yes.
talking about. But I'm just going to
When,
throw it
which
out there.
schools you're
One of the
talking about?
things we haven't talked about is, and another reason that I'm like pro small liberal arts college, is we haven't even gotten into the whole AI thing, right? Like AI is just
Oh,
what
we don't have time to get
we
into
don't
the
have
whole AI
we
We
don't
thing.
don't.
have time to get into the whole AI
Don't
thing.
make us boo you,
But
Allie,
I
like you
am
were a
just going to
commencement
say one
speaker.
thing. I think in the land and world of AI, that soft skills are coming back into play of being incredibly important. And I don't think there's ever been a more important time to have a liberal arts education.
That's a great sentiment, and it's one that seems counter to the prevailing conversation, but it's a conversation we heard a lot at in Baltimore at the
Yeah.
IECA National Conference, right? It's like, those of us who are closer to students
Mm-hmm.
are not telling everybody to sell out for STEM, not to say that STEM isn't a fantastic path if that's where you go, but yeah, liberal arts, there's still a place for liberal arts, and I don't think that we're going to see all of the colleges turn into polytechnic institutes.
Listen, my husband's an AI specialist at Amazon. I live in this world all the time. He also teaches data science at Yale and Columbia, right? So this is a little bit my world. And he will tell you they hired English majors like crazy last
Right.
Yeah.
year. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like people are like, what? I'm like, oh no, like that was maybe, social anthropologists, like things you're not expecting,
Mm-hmm.
So let's break it down to brass tacks. I mean, you've sifted through tons of data, information, you've read the tea leaves. How do you advise students and families to navigate this current college enrollment climate?
The first thing we advise is take a deep breath. Getting back to our theme of timing, try to start this process early. Educate yourself. Take a deep breath. Be patient. Don't panic. You should play the long game. Colleges are playing the long game. You should too. Be thoughtful with your course selection and with your activities. Take you may feel otherwise, but we'd like you, I don't think you do. Take your time with standardized testing. It's not something that you need to, rush and get under your belt. You may do better the longer time you give yourself to finish up or to even
We
get
definitely
started.
endorse that.
Good. Don't rush your applications, visit colleges, and don't rush your decision. Yes, for some students, or an early decision or a binding commitment is the right path for them, but for many others, it's not. Don't make a decision you are not ready for. And as Ali was saying, step back and think about what your priorities are. Are you looking to maximize the schools, your school choices, and maybe have the most selection and maybe the quote unquote best results and financial aid? Or are you just trying to lock something, a very, very strong outcome in right from the get-go?
One of the things I think is incredibly important and most people don't really consider is they don't do enough college research. They don't really pay attention enough to lining up what they want with the right institutions and trying to figure out a little bit about what the institutions want. And I'm going to try to maybe explain that in a bit of a different way. I think so much of sort of getting yeses, getting acceptances comes down to understanding where you're applying and what their goals are. So if you think even about what's happening, like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of colleges we see are sort of starting to follow two different enrollment pathways. You have the schools that are trying to maximize getting as many applicants. So a college like University of Georgia and Tulane in the last 2 or 3 weeks dropped their supplemental essays. UVA did it last year, right? Their apps are going to go through the roof. And when you're thinking about those schools, you have to realize they're probably going to be more stats driven because they are literally have now dropped their app supplemental essay. But then you look at a school like the University of Arizona, which used to be pretty, easy to get into. Is like a way to say pretty not selective. Last year, they added a 500-word supplemental essay, and they have really come right out. They've said they are getting more selective. They're pushing to have a higher yield. They're pushing to accept the kids who are going to accept them. You need to spend time and energy on that essay. You need to really show that you understand what the University of Arizona is and that you're a fit for that school. And that's how you gain acceptance to them now. So I think
It's so interesting. I just want to add, it's so interesting that while some schools are pulling back from supplemental
Others are,
essays,
right.
others are leaning into them.
100%.
But it speaks to the changing landscape at different institutions, what they're doing, what levers they have to sort of manage yield or predict yield.
But I think it's another way both pathways are leading to the same place, guys.
Yeah.
They're both trying to get the students that they want and be sort of more selective, but one's doing it by just upping the numbers and the other one's doing it by getting a better yield.
Just like, our enrollment management pathways, this is the same thing. They're both getting to the same exact place of, increasing selectivity, or at least, on a percentage basis of acceptance rate. The college itself has not changed, but their acceptance stats do change.
Fascinating. Well, Allie, Meg, we would love to keep digging into these college trends with you. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's always fun.
If listeners would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Our website, www.admissionsvillage.com.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next Tests and the Rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Test and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.